Of course, it's World Environment Day today, and it's the biggest, most globally celebrated day for positive environmental action. It's the United Nations principal vehicle for encouraging worldwide awareness and action for the environment. But what is South Africa doing to highlight the importance of this day? Well, we are joined in studio by the spokesperson for the Department of Environmental Affairs, Albi Modise. Very good morning to Albi. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you and good morning.
Before we talk about World Environmental Day today, which of course is an important day, it's sort of been the precursor to this has been Donald Trump pulling the US out of the Paris Accord, which some would say was exponential damage to the hopes of the world of getting a solution to our climate situation. As South Africa, where are we with regards to this?
Look, the South African government is very concerned and regrets the announcement by the American administration that they are withdrawing from the Paris Agreement. We believe strongly that the work that's been done thus far by global parties under the UNFCCC have been quite progressive, and that the inclusion of big economies like the US are exactly what we need for us to address the issue of climate change, because it doesn't respect political boundaries, and therefore it calls for all parties to work together in unison. That we need to see how we work collectively to ensure that we bring down possible increases of temperatures to just below 2 degrees.
How are we communicating with the US with regards to the accord?
Look, we are part of the multilateral agreement, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, that specifically looks at the different parties coming together within the UN system. And therefore, we would want to urge the American government to reconsider its position, that it's important for them as one of the key economies of the world to be part of this particular effort, but also that as a developing country ourselves, we have taken a bold decision to be part of the United Nations Framework Convention, largely because we think we need to lead by example and we need to be a responsible global citizen, and we urge the Americans to also emulate that example as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough fight, I think, going forward. I want to talk to you a little bit about what's happening here in South Africa, because you can't speak to those who don't want to listen to you. But anyhow, this day is important for South Africa because our environment is very sensitive and probably will be more sensitive than most if we have 2, 3, 4 degrees change in the next 100 years.
Of course. I mean, our program as government in terms of environmental protection realize the fact that if you're going to have climate change, the increases in temperatures are going to have an impact on food security. Food security because it will mean that if you had to add 2 degrees to our temperatures, those regions of the country where we plant our food are going to be adversely affected. And it will have an impact in terms of the oceans, because then if we have increase in temperatures and acidification of the ocean, it means that the fish is going to migrate deep into the ocean, and those who rely on seafood and the coastal towns will be impacted upon. Majorly. But of course, the inclement conditions that are going to arise out of that would have to have a bearing on our biodiversity. Our theme today, as it's a theme globally, is connecting people to nature. So that particular theme calls on all of us to look at how we, on a daily basis, engage with the environment, how we treat the water that we drink, how we treat the air that we breathe. Because at the end of the day, the air that we breathe, the water that we drink are dependent on how we treat the environment.
You know, now you're talking about what we can do to make a contribution, and littering is probably one of the things that you guys must have the biggest problem with, because that's the one thing that really costs us, I think, especially in the urban areas in South Africa. How do we overcome? And because we talk to people, but they don't seem to be listening about the littering. But
the fact is that we are a country that's urbanizing. And with urbanization, it means the levels of consumption increases. When level of consumption increase, it means that we have more and more waste going to the landfill site. What is not increasing, though, is the land size. So South Africa, as it is, occupying 2% of the global land, is not going to increase. How are we going to free up that land that we use as landfill sites so that it's used for other economically beneficial activities? We have, as part of the package that was presented by Minister Molewa just about 2 weeks ago in the budget speech, are looking at, amongst others, coming up with waste plans for the paper and packaging industries, the plastic industries, as well as, amongst others, the electronic industries. Electronic industries largely because, you know, technology changes so fast. The laptops that we use, the iPads that we use, our cell phones have got a very short lifespan.
Yeah.
After a year or two or so, we throw them away. They end up in landfill sites, and they are not good for the environment because some of those televisions, for an example, have got mercury that ends up going into the ground and gets sucked into the groundwater. So our efforts are to ensure that we move towards a recycling economy where jobs can be created, because as we've said before, there is going to be wealth generated within the waste sector, and that South Africa is going to take advantage of that opportunity as well.
Yeah, you can almost see the first throes of it starting to happen on our streets. I want to talk about your theme, connecting people with nature, and I want to talk about our parks. We've got such beautiful parks in and around our cities. Is part of connecting people with nature is getting them out of the house and into our parks. How do we do that? Is it about getting people to go out and pick up the litter first?
It's about a whole range of things, even. It's about how we treat the environment, the issue around not polluting our water. That's what nature gives us, water, fresh water to drink. It's about not polluting the air that we breathe, because at the end of the day, the health profile of South Africa is dependent on the quality of air that we breathe. If your air quality is going to be adversely affected by constant pollution, it's going to have an impact in terms of your health profile over a longer period of time. It's about, at the ultimate end, how we treat the environment, the trees that we plant, the respecting the parks that we have. I mean, we've got some of the most beautiful national parks. Kruger National Park is one of the most respected parks across the world. It's about the investment that we make in ensuring that we continue to draw tourists to our country. We, by the way, are the third mega diverse country in the world in terms of biodiversity. Now, it means that despite the fact that we occupy 2% of the land, we are the third best globally. Now, that's good for tourism. That's good for us as a country. What it means is that we have to ensure that we maintain that position, or at least improve it. We can't afford to take it down.
Our final message on World Environmental Day to South Africa.
Look, the month of June is Environment Month. Today is World Environment Day. The 8th of June is World Oceans Day. The 17th of June is World Day to Combat Desertification. All of these days, the common thread that cuts across is about protecting the environment, because at the end of the day, the income that we eke out from the land, from the ocean, and wherever, it's dependent on our attitude toward the environment. And that's it's important for us to realize what the Constitution says: protect the environment for the current generation, and ensure that as we hand over the world to our children and our children's children, we do it with pride, because we would have protected it, we would have looked after it.
Let's hope they don't hold that against us when we do, Albi, when we hand a broken world over. Thanks, Albi Modise, the Department of Environmental Affairs spokesperson, tells us here on World Environmental Day, it's all of our responsibility. We all have to make a contribution towards that.